Welcome to the Producing Half. Today I'm going to continue talking about school districts in Texas, and about how they're 100% CRT, critical race theory, queer theory, pedophilia. Their educators have been brought up in an environment of critical race theory, queer theory, postmodernism theory with the capital T. They've been brought up that way. And so today we're going to talk about that. It's going to be a brief overview, not too into the woods. If you want to get into the woods, you're more than welcome to. I'm not going to. I'm just going to do a brief overview and let you do your own research, but you'll be able to see that Texas school districts have completely collapsed. All right. So this is a list of books that were assigned, not just in the library. The library is full of horrific CRT, queer theory books. Matter of fact, all the books on display in the front of the library are all CRT books or queer theory books, all questioning gender, questioning identity, questioning heterosexuality, telling white people they need to be better for black people or people of color. It's just all CRT right there in the very front of the library. That's what's on display. If you want to go read a classic or something or a real book, you have to go deep in the library, and hopefully you're not attacked by the woke librarian and have a book forced upon you telling you that you need to engage in sex with various different types of species. But here's books that were assigned to my son. These books, for the most part, are CRT books or queer theory books about lesbians, homosexual sex. All Boys Aren't Blue is pornography. Should not, if a stranger gave this to your child, you would, of course, want them arrested. But it's okay for the school district to give them to your children. The only book that maybe be okay, I never read it or even looked into, was The Fault in Our Stars, but I saw the movie, so I'm assuming that the book is just about the movie, but who knows? It could be something. I should probably look into that. But the rest of the books are either pornography, are highly inappropriate for children, or just poorly written CRT books. I've read some of the reviews on the rest of them, and they're just poorly written CRT books. Nothing like inappropriate, other than you would want to read them with your child to counteract the CRT messages. But you can look into these books yourself and see how horrific they are. Either they're just poorly written, just junk that are only presented to students to read because they're CRT. Then they check off the boxes of inclusivity and diversity. But looking into this made me this kind of put me down a rabbit hole of looking into my son's school district. So, first of all, let's start with the first book on the list, which is All Boys Aren't Blue. So starting with that, All Boys Aren't Blue, let's just, so you don't have to take my word for it, let's just read some parents' reviews. It's porn. He didn't know I was a virgin, and I did my best to act dominant like my favorite porn star. In the first few minutes, we dry humped and grinded. And by the way, this is one of the more tame passages. I was behind him with my stomach on his back as we kissed. He pulled out some condom and some lube. I have never done it before. I had one point of reference, though, and it was 7+ years of watching pornography. Although the porn was heterosexual, it was enough of a reference point to get the job done. Teacher's pick. Yeah, in my case, that's a true statement. It's not my review. This book is inappropriate for children due to graphic content. This book is porn. It is being out in elementary, middle school, and high school, and is completely inappropriate for young readers. Graphic anal sex is described. If I could give it 0 stars, I would. Highly inappropriate. So you don't have to take my word for it. I just read these reviews. But then it, of course, put me on the Northside Independent School District website. Whole child development. And so I decided to look into, hold this, just dig around this website, and it is a interesting website. So you get to this part in the website, which is social emotional learning. Well, what is social emotional learning? What is CEL? Parents push back against CRT, Trojan horse. This is CEL. CEL is just another way of teaching CRT to our children. And I know we're not talking about the legal CRT theory that says that America's laws were based upon racism and so they disproportionately affect black people. I'm not arguing that. That's a legal theory. I'm talking about the praxis or the application of CRT in its teaching in our schools. And it is 100% happening. My kids go through it all the time. I've had a teacher tell my son that he couldn't be patriotic and white. You can't be a white and be patriotic because then you're a nationalist and you're a Nazi. I mean, they're teaching the most craziest things. White fragility. They just totally push white people bad, heterosexuality bad. It's all just total weird, nothing to do with reading, writing, and arithmetic. So it's just all it is just cells. Process of dealing, blah blah blah. To be clear, is curriculum cell like CRT. It is just cell is nothing but CRT. So I clicked on the little thing here that cell. What is social and emotional learning is a positive youth development framework that refers to the building of skills needed to recognize and manage emotions. Okay. Well, so this is the ironic. They're taking cell and they're associating it with CRT, but redefining what CRT is. So yet again, they can say, no, we're not teaching CRT. We're teaching culturally responsive teaching. The importance of using cultural references that are familiar to students and make learning meaningful and accessible. Yeah, this is just CRT and they're just redefining it. Cultural responsive teaching is only helpful necessary for some students. CRT is a teaching method that empowers all students intellectually, socially, and emotionally, and politically. They want your children to become activists. If you go to NISD's library page if you log in as your child and go to their library page, you will see that there's a whole section on activism. They have it highlighted right when you log in. It's all about activisms. Only teachers of colors have the skill to be truly culturally responsive. I mean, this is just CRT. So on our NISD website, teaching our children, we have CRT, and even though they call it culturally responsive teaching. Well, anyway, so you go down what is CRT? Well, CRT is nothing but postmodernism theory with a capital T. And it's been bastardized, I guess, into the CRT, critical race theory. And I'm not talking about that whole legal thing. That's what they'll always default to. I'm saying how it is applied and taught to teachers who then apply it and teach it to students. And it is hard to define on purpose. If it had clearly defined principles, you could look at the principle and then you could argue against it. By keeping it kind of amorphous and undefinable, they are able to implement the theory of it. In other words, they're able to push the perverted ideas of it and push it on to our kids without you being able to counteract its non-existent arguments, its lack of definition on purpose. But postmodernism was founded by a bunch of pedophiles. It's all CRT, postmodernism, theory with a capital T. It's all weird pedophiles. I mean, binary oppositions, identity, hierarchy. You're going to see these a lot, but let's look at the founders of postmodernism, CRT. Well, they're a bunch of pedophiles is what they are. You don't believe me? French philosopher abused boys in Tunisia. Well, Michael Foucault is right here. He's one of the main guys, and he would love to go. I guess I used my too many of mine, but he would love to go on these what he called tourism, pedophile tourism things, where he'd go through Tunisia and just abuse boys. Well, that may be just one of them, but look at these names. I mean, right here, look at these names. And a French petition they wanted to make it legal to have sex with children, and you'll see the same names. These are all the founders of CRT through the whole postmodernism and the theory with a capital T. They're all pedophiles. And other intellectual heroes were pedophiles. And so this goes through some of the things he did, and here you go, pedophilic sex tourism with young boys. The books he wrote about having relationships with children. More people who supported pedophilia. More people who supported pedophilia. These are all the founders of postmodernism. The superior of Marxism. That's another big one that you're going to see. These people are all like, the Epstein of the time. And so you're going to see this is part of what these guys were talking about before anybody ever heard of CRT, before the term CRT. But you see it's the same words: hegemonic, gender socialization, power inequality, patriarchy. This is all the same things, arguments you're going to see in CRT. This is all progressivism, postmodernism. This is all just this weird, evil pedophilia cult where they hate humanity, I guess. I'm not 100% sure what they get out of it other than they're all pedophiles and sickos. That's all I can figure out. So let's go back to our whole child department. Well, the first thing that pops up are whole child programs is behavior educational team support. What? And stakeholders. Where have I heard that term? It's such a peculiar word, stakeholders. And it is, and look at PBIS trainers and district facilitators and multi-tiered tier one. And so this is all talking about having different punishment systems for different races, really. They're saying white people gets punished this way, blacks this, browns this. Being culturally cognizant of them, of the race. It's funny how the CRT is racist. They want to fight against racial inequality, but they're racist. And so, but the stakeholder thing, where have we heard that before? Well, we've seen it from the WEF, Klaus Schwab, stakeholder. It's a Marxist. It's from Marxists. It's a stakeholder capitalism. It's all from Marxism. It's this idea that corporations need to care about stakeholders, not just profit. The employees, the customers. It's stakeholder. It's a way of saying that the businesses are owned by the people. But it's all these people are being educated by these weird cult of postmodern pedophiles and Marxist. They're all Marxist postmodern pedophiles. That's what they are. So back to our lovely Northside Independent School District. So if you click on, and I went through all these, I found so many, or I'm not going to do it all, we'd be here all day, but there's a lot of problems here. But if you click on health education, and you go down to, look, CASEL. All right, so what is CASEL? CASEL is Advanced Social and Emotional Learning. CEL, this is where this is coming from. This is where they implement CEL. And so you can definitely go through this website as I did. I spent way too much time clicking, watching all the videos on this site, and I would find a bunch of good videos, and then I'd click off, and then I'd never find my way back to those videos. There's so much insanity on this site. There's so much racism, and it's so much CRT, and the things they're doing they're just insanity. It's all I can say. There is insanity. So one of the things I printed up was promote equity using CEL in your district. Well, we know what our district is doing. So what in a culturally responsive lens, educators can use CEL to cultivate equitable learning opportunities. And so self-awareness, in what ways does your identity, race, ethnicity, social class status, gender, learning ability, strengths, inform who you are as an educator? Can you recall times when your identity was made? So you understand how these teachers, they're being taught CRT from the moment they get into college. So you're talking, now we're on 2 or 3 generations of the application of CRT in our educational schools, our teacher training schools. So these teachers have taught, probably this, you're on your 2nd generation or maybe 3rd generation that has been run through this. We didn't notice at first because it's only small changes, but now we're at the point where the entire education system is overrun with this postmodernism theory, CRT, pedophilia. That's the only way they can recommend or assign a pornographic, homosexual book to children, freshmen, 15-year-olds, 14 and 15-year-olds to read. That's the only way, is by having 2 or 3 generations going through this weird CRT, postmodern pedophilia theories, things that they go. And all of this stuff here, if you read it all, it's different types of tiers of punishing and teaching based upon children's race. It's the opposite of equity. And so when you're on this site, and you clicked on some videos that are on this site, here's one that we can briefly watch.
So they all talked about making sure to show that they didn't feel like experts in the building, but as you can see, these are experts right here, and I'm really excited about the rest of the session. I'm going to do one more starter question related to commitment, and it is, how do you deal with, get past, work with, work forward with white fragility?
Who wants to start? Sandy, that's you.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Go, Sandy. Go, Sandy.
Well, first of all, I will say this. Some of the teachers that I work with, they don't want that language, right? So you have to talk around it in order to get to it.
You have to talk around, you know what I'm saying? They know that this is insane. They know that it is wrong. These facilitators, these PBIS people who go to the schools and make sure the schools are implementing critical race theory, the postmodern pedophilia that's attacking our children, they know at first they can't just go in there hard. If you watch this entire thing, they talk about this. They talk about going in there and just sort of hinting at it a little bit. They don't... like, you can't just go in there wearing suits and being the expert and telling them the language they're using. The language police. You can't say certain words even though they're just normal words. They talk about this. They know what they're doing is evil, and that's why she's saying that.
It's just not always my preferred method of communication. So there's definitely some self-reflection that I have to do and some stepping back that I have to do so that I'm not putting up that barrier right away. I'm also always open to coaching from others. I talk to colleagues about all of this very openly. I share my own experiences, my own biases, my own mistakes. with
Well, anyways, you can watch these videos if you want. Another one I found was Racial Equity in Schools, the role and responsibility of white educators. You can watch this horrific video if you so desire. Another one I found was share the effects of PBI. This is so basically different tiers um, to discipline based upon the race. So think about Black Lives Matter and the riots and how I just watched a video today about a child. I don't know, he was like 15, 16, and he was arrested, immediately released. Then he was arrested for a violent crime with a gun. He was immediately released. And then think like the day he was released, he carjacked a Lyft driver and then killed a 15-year-old kid. Even though he'd already been arrested with gun violations and violent crimes with a gun, he was always immediately released because he is a person of color, and it is wrong to keep people of color, even if they're violent criminals, in jail. And there's just case after case after case where and it's in schools where there's going to be different rules based upon your race. How is that not racist? How is that not racist? So all this rabbit hole, and trust me, this is just the tip of the spear. This is just the tip of the spear of what the insanity in a Texas school district, Northside Independent School District, the insanity of this postmodern pedophilia CRT that they're doing, and it is 100% implemented in the Northside Independent School District. And this is all school districts. You go to any school district, you're going to find this social emotional learning, which is the Chinese credit score. This is the same thing as the Chinese credit score, or ESG as for adults. So they have it SEL for children. It's going to be ESG for adults, environmental, social, and governance. And then it's the Chinese credit score. In schools, it's social emotional learning, CRT, postmodern pedophilia theory, CRT, critical race theory. It is 100%, and that's how you're able to get teachers assigning a bunch of CRT books and pornography books. The librarian at the librarian department for this school district is constantly pushing pornography, hardcore. I'm talking about adult men having sex with little boys, children, pedophilia, pushing critical race theory. White people are bad. If you're heterosexual, then you are a bigot. You have to engage in homosexuality. It's just crazy. The most craziest things you can imagine. How do you get a teacher to assign these? Not just a teacher that thinks that kids should read pornography, but actually assign it and think it's okay to assign it and not worried about getting in trouble. Well, you get there through this castle. You get there through the whole thing. And when you go to this castle thing, they have, if you want to dig deep into it, if you're feeling very frisky and you don't mind getting very sick, they have implements. They talk about whole districts, how to implement it, how to get to it. They talk about everything. I mean, it's really about this. It's really about implementing CRT, implementing postmodernism, implementing the social credit score, ESG, the Chinese social system. It is indoctrinating. It has nothing to do with teaching your kids to be an engineer or a lawyer. Well, heavens forbid they become a lawyer. But teaching them to be, a scientist, teaching them to, accountant, or even a mechanic. God forbid, a mechanic, a plumber, an electrician. I don't know about you, but in today's world, a professional like that, a blue collar worker, a licensed blue collar electrician or a plumber, they're making 100 grand. They're making six figures, and that was good money. Won't be too much longer with the devaluation of the currency. But this is what we have. We have our school districts taken over by globalists. You saw the stakeholder terminology. So you have these, it is, you as a parent have no chance. If your child is in this, in a school district, anywhere in America, unless it's a small district run by older people who are still teaching the fundamentals, the way we used to teach, the way we teach now is not how we teach. Ironically, the countries that are destroying us in education are teaching their kids the way America used to teach our kids in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. They're just using our old system. They realize it worked perfectly, they implemented it, and they use it. We have developed these weird, brainwashing. They're just brainwashing systems to teach our kids. That's why our kids don't do anything. When I get a new employee, they're incapable of reading and writing. Their emails make no sense. You send them an email, and their response makes no sense because they have no reading comprehension. They can't even use any technology other than their phone. Heavens forbid they have to find a printer on their computer, and these are young people. They can't do their taxes. They don't know how to manage a bank account. They're not capable of anything. The school districts are not teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic. They'll teach it just enough to pass the classes. They'll teach them just enough so they can, as George Carlin said, so they can operate the machines. But they're not actually going to have them learn. They're not going to instill a love of education to them. No, they're going to do these weird social emotional learning, postmodern pedophilia, crazy critical race theory stuff. And that is the Northside Independent School District. That is every school district in Texas, and that is every school district in America. They have fallen. You have to get your children out. You're just a lone parent going up against an institution that has $1 billion behind it. And these school districts have so much money. They have so many lawyers. You go to their boards, they don't listen. They just laugh at you. They're like, "Oh, peon, you ignorant parent." They want nothing to do with the parents. The parents are their enemy. These are their children, not yours. You have no chance. You have to get your child out of these school districts, unless your child is immune to this or is aware of this and you educate them. But still, what are they getting out of this? It's a struggle. I know what you're talking. I have children in school. I understand. It's a struggle. What do you do when everything is against you? When you have these globalist-funded giant organizations that are everywhere. They snuck in CRT by just redefining it into this cell thing, this social emotional thing, and then redefining CRT. It's an insanity. You are definitely behind the 8 ball, to say the least. Well, anyways, I just wanted to give you some information about what's going on in our school district, and I hope you use this to fight against this postmodern pedophilia, critical race theory stuff. Thanks.